Welcome to the Daily Freedomist Show. This is your host, Paul Gordon Collier with Freedomist.com, and we are looking at Freedomist.com right now. News and intelligence for free people. Accurate, timely. Being free to prosper and live as you choose isn't something that just happens. You make it happen. But to make it happen, you need to be armed with insights, knowledge, resources, and credible analysis of the events shaping your world and your life. And what we do in this show is we're looking at what the news media is talking about. We're giving you a little analysis of the news media coverage as well as the stories themselves in brief form. And my brother and I, Bill Collier, the editor of the Freedomist, we are developing a show which hopefully within the next week or two will begin. It'll be a bi-weekly show which will go into a lot more detail on some of these stories that I talk about on the Daily Freedomist, and that's going to be called The Big Freedomist Show. So keep watching for that. That's coming. And if you want to get a lowdown on all of the news that we cover on this show, well, you click on that NewsWatch page link that you just saw me do if you're watching the video version of this show, and you can scroll and you can see I go through 1,000 to 1,500 links a day, and I collate them, and I work out how I work out the links into a filtering system that's all in my brain, and then it comes on out here, so you can go to this page and you can see a wide variety of news stories, and I have different topics that I cover, and some topics will stay there for a while because as the story unfolds, we keep tracking it day to day, and then other topics change, and then we have regular features that we have here as well. We have coming up here when we get into our departments. We have American Power Watch, Christian Watch, Corporate Watch. Well, we got a number of stuff. So you be sure to go to the NewsWatch page, which is at freedomist.com/NW. And with that, let's get ready for let's do the stories. Yeah. Got to get used to this. There we go. We've made the transition, and now we're ready to start recording. Are you ready? Will Biden's anti-gun orders make you a felon? This is our topic report. It's the story that I chose to start off with. This is Biden gun control action. That's the topic that we're going to be looking at here. And we first link up here, we have Biden's executive actions could turn millions into felons. This is from Free Beacon. White House taps gun control activist to lead ATF, and that's wonderful. That's the brief there, but a little bit more to this. President Biden issued a sweeping executive actions on Thursday restricting access to popular firearms, a move that could turn millions of Americans into felons overnight. And this is, let's see, Biden says, this is an epidemic. Oh, everything's an epidemic. The epidemic that's going on is actually the attempt by corporate nationalists and their government allies to control all of us. The move faced swift backlash from gun rights advocates and industry groups. The Firearms Regulatory Accountability Coalition, the FRAC, which represents pistol brace makers, told the Washington Free Beacon Biden will face legal and electoral consequences if he goes through with attempting to ban the popular device. The Biden administration must be unaware that the Congressional Research Service cited estimates of 10 to 40 million pistol braces in circulation. Travis Stevens-White, the group's president, said, aside from the legal problems, if the Biden administration is preparing to issue an administrative edict that has the potential to impact that number of gun-owning Americans, then they also need to be prepared to deal with the electoral consequences. Never mind the consequences of trying to enforce that rule when you have... It's another one of these... Whenever you have any type of government, any type of authority really in general, that is willing to put into some sort of law, regulation, standard, something which is fundamentally, realistically unenforceable, you know that they mean bad things. They mean bad, very, very bad controlling things. Let's look at some of the other headlines here related to this, how the world is dealing with this news. From The Blaze, we have Jen Psaki said the Biden does not believe the false statements he made about background checks. That's great. White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki told reporters that President Joe Biden did not actually believe that verifiably false statements about background checks he made during his speech on gun control. And that's good to know. So he doesn't believe his own lies, apparently. That's pretty much what you're saying here. And there's old Jen there. Stop text censorship. All right. Thank you for the pop-up, Blaze. White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki told reporters that President Joe Biden did not actually believe most people don't know it. You walk into a store to buy a gun, you have a background check, but if you go to a gun show, you can buy whatever you want, no background checks. That's not true. I've been to gun shows. And you have to have a background check. They can't sell you a gun if they don't have the equipment, then you have to fill out paperwork and it's a rigmarole. So they have to have their little background equipment lined up well in advance. And then just briefly, the other orders here we got. I support Biden's gun orders. Don't support House background checks. That's from your Mr. Joe Manchin trying to play both sides of the universe there, Senator Joe Manchin. So he supports turning millions of human beings into felons because they have a pistol brace. Biden calls gun violence in America an, quote, international embarrassment, unquote. Imagine the sitting president that is willing to try to demonize all of its own citizens that dare to believe that they should be able to defend themselves on an international stage, feeding our enemies, giving our enemies the ammunition they need to further delegitimize America as a people, to demoralize and delegitimize America as a people. That's what you're facing here. We're going to go on to the next story, so keep watching. Let's get on to this one. All right. It's a good picture of him. Looks good. Oh, he's dead. Never mind. Prince Philip dead at 99. This is our top stories report. As you can see, Prince Philip looking rather snazzy there, looking really good. And he's he's dead. He's dead. Sorry, I guess he didn't look so great after all. Looked pretty good there, but I guess not. He did. So let's see our top story report here. Leading off to this top story from the top story report. Prince Philip, husband of Queen Elizabeth II, is dead at 99. Now, in my scheme of things, I'm not necessarily thinking this is necessarily the biggest story, but it's a story that is overwhelmingly being shared and talked about by the medias, such as they are. So that's why I put it here. Oh yeah, so this is from the New York Times. New York Times doesn't always show me. It's the Duke of Edinburgh, who married the future queen in 1947. There you go. Brought the monarchy into the 20th century, but his occasional tactless comments hurt. Dang, he's dead. He's dead. He just died, and you got to add this. His occasional tactless. You know what? Just save it. Just save it. So he's dead. So there you go. 99 years old. True tragedy to all humanity. Gone too soon. Indiana lawmakers get closer to adding new ID requirements to mail voting. Well. The corporate nationalists, they're going to be looking at Indiana. I don't know. Making you imagine how at some point, politicians have to figure out just how much power that they're ceding to these corporate nationalists, including the Democrats, who right now, maybe the corporate nationalists are on your side, but you're empowering something. You're empowering something that could eventually turn against you. And in point of fact, most of these people are let's just say that they're not very consensually minded individuals, and they're not really keen on true diversity. They really look, I say in other videos, they look in the mirror at a room that they imagine is filled with the leaders of the world, and the only one in that room is them. And so when they're looking out across the people that right now they're friendly with, they're looking for the opportunity to knife them in the back. And so these corporate nationalists playing a dangerous game, and the politicians that are currently enabling these corporate nationalists are playing a game too, dangerous game too, because eventually corporate nationalists are going to come for you. Because once you have a power, you don't want to let it go, especially when you're a psychopath like most of these folks are. Not that all psychopaths would would operate in this way, but psychopaths with this type of power do. Kim Jong-un warns of North Korea crisis similar to deadly 90s famine. That's from Yahoo News. Then we've got experts testify that former police officer Derek Chauvin used excessive force during arrest of George Floyd. That's from ChristianHeadlines.com. Ex-NFL player suspected in murder of doctor's wife, their 2 grandchildren, and an HVAC worker. Wow. There's a lot to that one. Authorities are still searching for a motive after they say former NFL player Philip Adams went to the home of Dr. Robert Leslie of Rock Hill, South Carolina on Wednesday, fatally shooting the physician along with the doctor's wife, 2 of their grandchildren, and an HVAC technician who happened to be working there at the time. And then he killed himself. Wyoming governor signs Born Alive Act. This is from the Daily Signal, so I'm sure the corporate nationalists will begin to use their power there to try to hurt Wyoming, because how dare you be in support of not allowing human beings to decide to end life for the sake of whatever reason they have. How dare you? How dare you actually fight for the most vulnerable people in our society, the unborn? How dare you? The corporate nationalists will decide that is an immoral thing. It's immoral for you to fight for the unborn. Immoral. Gunmen kill 11 Nigerian troops in central Benue State, from Al-Jazeera.com. Army spokesman said troops operating in Benue State came under attack while on routine operational task. Gunmen have killed 10 soldiers and an officer in the central Nigerian state of Benue. Nigerian army troops operating in Benue State came under attack while on routine operational task. Man, I hate saying bad things about Nigeria, because Nigerian people are awesome. If you don't have any Nigerian friends in your life, you're missing out, because I don't know what it is about Nigerian culture in general, but Nigerians are just, I mean, the ones that I've met, and from what I've heard from other folks with similar experiences, they're very smart, they're very professional, they're very industrious. So, yeah. Get this insanity out of Nigeria and let these Nigerians do what they do. Awesome stuff. That's the end of our topic, our top story report. It's just like that. We just move on. We just move on to the next story, folks. We don't want to linger too long in the trauma of the top story report, because usually not great stuff. This isn't necessarily great, what's coming up here, but I think it's pretty interesting. U.S. corporate nationalists need China, and that undermines their moral supremacist claim. This is a topic report in which we're focusing on, well, we're looking at China and its involvement with woke corporations, and that's the topic here. China, woke business ties, and the Xinjiang problem. So the first story here at the top here, Hollywood's China problem unfolds in ongoing Chloe Zhao controversy. So there is Chloe Zhao, who is Chinese. She comes from a wealthy family, and she had made a statement that was her IMBD that China lies, and now that's been scrubbed. And it's been scrubbed because Disney, whatever, is totally in bed with China and relying on China to rescue it from the fact that it's no longer interested in serving its American public, but rather in creating it. So it's interested in creating you rather than serving you, so it's serving you all of this hot garbage that is intended to reinforce the notion that somehow anything that is quote-unquote normative is bad, and only things that are decent are the things outside of the normative. They're critical race theory, whatever garbage crap that they're trying to cram down our throats through the content that they have now chosen to create for us, using intellectual property that it controls and converting it into the new wokeness. So we have China report accuses U.S. of causing humanitarian disasters. And China is just using all of the critical race theory woke kind of language to vilify Americans, and you can bet that they will also use what Joe Biden just said to see, even your own president says you're gun crazy lunatics. See, you're terrible. Under pressure over Xinjiang, China takes aim at overseas Uyghurs. So this is from Kilo.com. At a crowded press event on Friday in Beijing, Chinese officials aired a video of a thin Uyghur man with a shaved head wearing an oversized uniform and speaking directly to the camera. I will try to do my best to change myself and receive the leniency. Well, that's horrible, horrible, horrible. Horrible what's going on there. And then we have here, I am looking for the one link that I wanted to share and talk about, and that is... Well, I guess it's not here. At any rate, I think that the problem that the corporate nationalists in America have thrown in with this moral supremacist ideology, that they are now going to be the gatekeepers of decency and morality in America, and they are going to make sure that those that fall outside of their decency parameters get hammered and get destroyed, and their lives no longer able to realistically function in the marketplace because they control most of the market, while at the same hand they are relying more and more on a regime, a nation state, whose morality is decidedly, well, it's racist. They recently, a Chinese court just recently upheld the standard that homosexuality is a mental illness. They're incredibly anti-gay. They're incredibly anti-all races but the Han race. This is why the Uyghurs are being persecuted, because they want the land. They want the land to be occupied by Han Chinese, and the Uyghurs, they want them to do one of two things: die or be assimilated. Preferably die, but if they must, be assimilated, because there's so many, the Germans found out during World War II that human beings, no matter how hideous they are to start with, they kind of get broken at a certain point after they kill so many people. So the Chinese would like to avoid the final solution problems of the Germans, so they'd rather just see more of the Uyghurs just kind of get, what they're doing is they're sending them out into different parts of the country, small numbers here, small numbers there, and forcing them to integrate and either marry Han Chinese so they become absorbed, or not marry and be boxed in so they can't do anything. And this isn't going to affect the rabid cultists that think that because the corporate nationalists picked their particular vehicle of power that they're safe. But everybody else outside of it, it's going to affect how everybody else outside of it looks at these people. And what they should conclude is, they're evil. They're all evil. They're all in bed with one another, and they're all evil. I mean, evil is subjective, folks, right? Yeah. I don't really think it is, but let's just say it is. But within our subjective realization, I think we all can agree that any corporate nationalist that puts itself into China's orbit and then wants to morally browbeat the rest of us because maybe we have questions about, leading up to the next story, maybe we have questions about how does the transgender need meet the need of everybody else around them, and how do we figure out this issue? Well, you can't do that with these people, because it's just their moral supremacism has demanded that a whole list of things that you're not even allowed to think without being considered outside the pale of human decency. Wow! They make billions of dollars off of China. Anti-gay, anti-black China. Shut up. Just shut up, nationalists. All right, on to the next story. States wrestle with trans rights and reality in climate of factional fear. This is a topic report in which we're looking at how things are unfolding with trans rights versus how your rights match with other rights, and the friction that is there. But we live in a world, we'll see. I'll let you see for yourself. So we have here the first headline here: state lawmakers aim to block doctors from giving treatment surgery to transgender people under 21. From myfoxnews.com. Senate lawmakers introduced a bill this week that seeks to block doctors from giving treatment and gender-confirming surgery to those under 21 years old. So I think that's probably 18, not 21. if you're bondable, you should be able to make that decision at least. Senate Bill 514, also known as the Youth Health Protection Act, would prohibit doctors from performing procedures like mastectomies, removing healthy body parts, or giving certain hormone treatments. 15 states consider bills on gender confirmation treatment, USA Today. Arkansas became on Tuesday the first state in the country to ban medical treatments for transgendered minors. The state's mostly Republican legislature voted to override Governor Asa Hutchinson's veto of House Bill 1570. So now it's law. So they overrode the GOP guy, alleged GOP guy. I'm not a GOP person myself, but you GOPers, well, I think you've already been saying like, okay, well, we're done with Asa. Kansas lawmakers likely to pass bill on transgender athletes. LGBTQ rights advocates in Kansas are relying on the state Democratic governor or the courts or the corporate nationalists to hurt Kansas economically, it's basically economic terrorism. I think we'll look back and kind of view these corporate nationalists as economic terrorists, which they absolutely are, at least by my standards. I'm not sure of the details of this bill, but I would imagine that this bill probably isn't well thought out, probably knee-jerk, black and white, doesn't really look at the nuance and complexity of the issues involved. South Carolina bill to ban transgender women from girls' high school sports resurface in State House. And this is from postandcourier.com. I guess the corporate nationalists are going to have to go after South Carolina. Now, man, there's a growing list of states the corporate nationalists are going to have to try to economically murder. I don't know, man. I don't know. They went down this road. You claim power that you don't have, and you put yourself in a position where you have to try to exercise the power that you don't have. You're going to lose your effectiveness. Reproductive Health Care Center offers support for transgender youth. You're a reproductive health care center. That's an abortion clinic. You murder unborn children. Don't even pretend that you care about young people, because you don't. You only care about young people that society approves of. They have to earn. They don't even get to earn their right. They have to be lucky enough to be born to a human being that will bring them to term. And you're okay with those standards. You're okay with that type of ball worship, and that's exactly what it is. It's sacrificing your children so that you can go on and lead the life that you want, which is an unaccountable life. The history of trans children in medicine. Now, this was an interesting article, and I can't go into much more detail about it, but the article is making a case that there have always been transgender people, kids, and they've had these struggles, and they've had various transgender treatments, and they're saying that we shouldn't question, medically treating transgender children. But what they cite is people that are basically, they can dress like girls if they're, genetically, biologically boys. But it really doesn't. There's nothing that I can see so far that shows long-term studies about the effects of hacking off body parts when children are children and filling them with chemicals, highly powerful, highly mind-altering chemicals, as a treatment for this. That maybe possibly you should have some long-term studies before you dive into these things. But again, within this climate of factionalism, where one side is basically screw transgender people, this is real simple, we're just going to shut it all down, to the other side saying transgender people, if you're transgendered, you could do nothing wrong. That Family Guy little clip where somebody's transgendered, somebody's transgendered, and I don't know, the guy questions like how old they are. You're like, should you be drinking or something? Like, I'm transgender. Oh, well, you can do what you want. So those are the two extremes, and in a factional world, well, we're not really going to get to the nuances that could really help us figure out exactly how to match the rights of humans with the reality of power. And you have it. Yeah, this is our next story. We're going to do it. We're going to a world international story here now. Satellite seizure, drone assaults highlight latest controlling action of the Myanmar junta. It bears watching all of us that live in lands in which there are corporate nationalists that have the ability to control more and more aspects of our lives. At some point, human beings are going to have enough, and when that happens, you should look at what's going on in Myanmar and see how it is that one party, the significant minority party, the Myanmar junta, is using its monopolization on violence to seek to control the vast majority of human beings that don't want to have anything to do with it. And you're seeing in this latest exchange, what you're going to learn is we're going to have satellites that governments don't have access to in order for us to be truly free. Satellites in the hands of human beings outside of governments are just as important to us as guns are. And you're seeing it here. Myanmar information blackout worsens with internet-limited satellite seized. This is from Global News CA. An information blackout under Myanmar's military junta worsened Thursday as fiber broadband services, the latest legal way for ordinary people to access the internet, became intermittently inaccessible on several networks. Authorities in some areas have also started confiscating satellite dishes used to access international news broadcasts. Now, you said satellites. Are you saying satellites? Because satellite is not a... Well, I'm sure that they're seizing satellites, however, with the little computer, whatever thingy. So we need satellites that have encryption protection services so that governments can't access them. We need non-government satellites to protect the people against governments. Clearly. Myanmar junta uses Chinese drones to monitor protesters. I don't know whether my little scenario will play out or not. I think it will. I'm not sure, but in my scenario, I basically said at some point, this is going to be drone wars. Going to be drone wars in Myanmar, and it's starting with the junta using, and what are they using? Chinese drones. Yeah, they're using Chinese drones to try to control their citizens. And then that's from scmp.com. Then we got 614 civilians have been shot and killed so far, including children. Myanmar's brutal military crackdown, and that's from the CNN report. Rohingya in India under threat of deportation to junta-ruled Myanmar. So India is about ready, and they ruled in a court that they can send them out. So India is about ready to send Rohingyans back to a region that wants to kill them. All in an effort so that they can appear not to be too involved in what's going to want to get sucked into this, I guess. And, nation states have to sacrifice people sometimes for the good of the whole. So the Rohingyans, got to sacrifice them because they're not human beings. We as Christians, we are loyal to human beings first and foremost, regardless of their nation statism or their ethnicity or anything else. We are loyal to humans just for the sake of humanity alone, for human beings being made in the image of God. So for a Christian people, it would be ungodly for us to send these Rohingyans away. Ungodly. But nation states, they don't operate under those parameters. They can't afford to, because if they do, then the psychopaths will lose power. They can't afford that. Myanmar crisis sounds death knell for garment industry, jobs, and hope. So that's from Reuters. So there goes your economy with this. And that's what would happen. And that's why in part why corporate nationalists are so dependent on China more and more, because they understand that they're doing things that are destroying their economic power. U.S. blacklist Myanmar state-owned GEMS enterprise. So a little token form for the United States, standing up for the Myanmar people. A little token resistance there. That's cute. Myanmar civilian envoy pleads, and that's from channelnewsasia.com. From Nikkei.com, we have Myanmar civilian envoys plead with China and Russia to stop junta. They're pleading to other nation states to stop the junta, while the junta is using assets from these same nation states, in the case of China, in talking about the drones, to continue to oppress them. Malaysia defends envoys meeting with Myanmar's junta after backlash. So now Malaysians are like, oh, are you for this? Are you legitimizing them? And there you go. So I don't know whether we'll keep tracking Myanmar for how long or not, but it might be for a while, because it bears paying attention to if you are a freedomist. Next story here, getting up to this is all right. There we go. While Portland loses cops, leaders continue assaults on their own department. They're very schizophrenic. There's a Topics report. They're very schizophrenic in that the people who actually make their words mean things. The cops. It's the cops. And for all you cops out there, just so you know, more and more people are turning against you, including the people on the right that used to like you, because you just don't ever say no. Somebody gives you an order and you say yes. You just follow orders. That's all you've done. There's been very, very, very little resistance from the police as far as following these horrible orders that these horrible, oppressive leaders from their little ivory towers have given, especially during coronavirus. Police have lost so much credibility during coronavirus because they've demonstrated again and again their willingness to execute just unjust and unenforceable laws, putting themselves and others at mortal risk to satisfy their unaccountable masters. Portland Police Department reportedly losing officers in droves. This is from Yahoo News. And officers have reportedly left since July 2020. Fox News analyst Lawrence Jones breaks down what's happening in liberal cities. I guess that's happening in other places too. But stop calling them liberals. They're not liberals. They are corporate nationalists through and through. And they would love a corporate nationalist world that is unaccountable to we the people. A situation in which you get to choose which one of your masters is your masters, or you don't get to live. Because if you want a job at the highest levels, you're going to have to pick from amongst the few corporate nationalists that control most everything. Antifa attacks Portland Police Union amid ongoing unrest. So I want you to get that one. That's from Fox News. So while Antifa is doing that, Portland and then you have this kind of weird. Portland excludes police from $6 million gun violence prevention plan. So Portland is going to get money for this gun violence prevention plan, but they're going to make sure that the police who have to enforce these gun rules, where they have to literally knock on people's doors to confiscate guns and probably get shot at. I'm not advocating for that. Please don't do that. It's really not good. But that's probably what's going to happen. But they're not going to get the extra funding to do the extra work. Really, really awesome. Plan to address gun violence will nearly double Portland's park rangers. This is from KPTV.com. Group investigates possible racial political violence within Portland Police, city says. And this is, it's just, these people have no idea. You can't keep attacking your goons. These are your goons. And you're attacking your own goons. You're not issuing policies that anyone of sound mind and body really wants to see happen. Most normal human beings recognize the psychopathic nature of these weird laws that you're now creating. And the people that are going to make that possible for you, you're turning on. I guess that's a good thing for we freedomists. But not that, I mean, in a sense, I'm not for any of these folks being targeted by this racial political bias garbage. Although, to be fair, they're probably right. There's probably plenty of racial political bias within the Portland Police Department, as there is in most police departments, most likely. But that's a whole other story. That would be a long report digging into why I would tell you that. Union says Portland Park Rangers want body armor for patrolling parks. WWeek.com. Of course they do. But you just put a bullseye on them. Yeah, you did, because if they're going to enforce these gun laws, yeah, they're going to be hated. They're going to be hated. Portland housing market is insane. Homes going for $100,000 over asking. I have no idea. KATU.com. This one makes no sense. Why is the value of homes going up in Portland? Well, I would think the opposite would happen, but apparently that's what's happening. And finally, Portland police look for exit, say they're burned out. This is from Fox News. Last year's Portland's police department said it received an unprecedented number of officers leaving their jobs mid-career to take lower-paying jobs elsewhere. And on Sunday, the city's main newspaper published an article that offered a glimpse into some of the reasons why. Some of the reasons why is they're being asked to do violent, dangerous work while the very people who are asking them to do it are also saying, oh, by the way, you're racist, bigoted, horrible, evil people. Yeah, of course. That's why. Doesn't take a rocket science to figure this stuff out, folks. So we've got a couple more stories here. I don't know if we'll get to all of them. Yeah, well, we're going to try. Children of the border of the most vulnerable as mass migration surges under Biden. This is a topic report. Let me repeat that. Children of the border I should have made. Oh, I see what I was doing here. Children of the border, the most vulnerable as mass migration surges under Biden. This is a topic report, and the topic is border kids. That's what we're talking about, border kids. From thefederalist.com, families' perilous gamble paying smugglers to reunite kids pays off thanks to Biden policies. That's what families have to do. They have to just kind of hope that the smugglers that they're paying to get their kids in through the border without being detected and put into these little holding pens, hideous holding pens, that they'll get through safely. Parents of additional the people that they're relying on to bring their kids to them safely won't sell them into sex slavery or something else. Parents of additional 61 separated children have been located, advocates say, in new court filing. And this is from dailycoast.com. On the left, this is where I'm somewhat aligned with the left, and well, I think that we Christians, we should be. It's not really as important to. I mean, it's hideous. I know why they're bringing these folks in. I know they're bringing them in to undermine Americanism, whatever that is, and I know they're bringing them in for votes so that they can have unaccountable governments to we the people, and they can kill American Bill of Rights-isms. All of that is horrible, and I'm not advocating any of that, but at the same hand, these are human beings that it's not their fault that they're here. And I won't call them illegal aliens. I won't do that. That's subhumanizing, and I won't do it as a Christian. And I won't want anything but the best for these human beings, no matter what. I want these human beings to live and to be happy and to not suffer in the way that they are right now, especially these children. There's places you can Google it. There's places, if you're a Christian, I encourage you to give to the groups that are actually trying to help the kids, especially help these kids that are caught up in this mess and rescue them. And I don't care about their nationality or their ethnicity. I care about their humanity. They're children. They're human beings in God's image, and this is one of the areas that really breaks my heart. Really, how we treat the sojourner in America, I believe, is in part one of the reasons why we're being so judged. Abortion is probably one of the main reasons. I think this is pretty close. How we treat our sojourners, certainly another reason. Unaccompanied migrant kids crossing U.S. border hits all-time high in March, from France 24. From AlJazeera.com, U.S.-Mexico border sees 71% increase in migrant crossings. Yeah, horrible. I mean, it's horrible because these people are all vulnerable. They're all just chattel for everybody else. They're cheap labor or they're political votes, but they're not humans to hardly anybody on the left or the right. The right calls them illegal aliens, and the left, they're not doing anything to really help these kids, help these adults, and they don't really care. They just want the political power that's flooding America with non-Americans. And when I say non-Americans, these are people that they don't have the Bill of Rights assumptions in them. And they want these folks to basically vote Democrat and make them unaccountable. It's all horrible. It's all hideous. But don't worry, God wins. And be patient. It's very good for you to be patient, for the Lord will do what He does in His time and in His way, and vengeance is His, not ours. And we can conquer this right here and right now in the way that we love one another. And how we show how we love one another is how we equip one another. We're able to take care of one another outside of these systems, of these violent, oppressive systems of control. And we got Charity Helping Migrants says Alex Jones used stage confrontation to allege trafficking. That's from, I don't know who that's from the left. It says border crossing in March hits highest level in over a decade. That's from HuffPost.com. And Biden's border crisis creates largest illegal alien influx in more than 20 years. That's from the right. And March saw, that's from the Federalist, and March saw the most ever children stopped at U.S.-Mexico border in a single month, from NPR. That's how we'll end it. Whew. Certain stories get to me, and the sojourner stories always get to me, because I kind of came from I mean, I'm an American. I was born here, but I always went from place to place. I didn't have a very stable family life for a lot of reasons. I went from place to place. I was always the stranger in the land, and I was treated like a stranger. And so I appreciate how devastating it is when you go into a new space as the outsider and they treat you like you're subhuman. And that's what we're doing. Even the very people that allege that they're standing up for this, for representing the migrant, they don't give a crap about them. They're not going to be there to help them when these people are caught up in sex trade, or when these people are shuttled into some underground sweatshop where they work for pennies for the dollar. Basically, it's slave labor. They're not going to be anywhere around to protect them. I mean, there's some people that will, but overwhelmingly, they're not. Nobody cares. Let's get to the next story. China's junk patents could be weapon of war against free nations. This is an editor's choice report. There's stories that I think are, well, in this case I'm picking them, but they're stories of note that may not be the top stories, but I think they're worth paying attention to. And we have China likely winner of the information age e-commerce supply chain by maintaining peace and corporate property rights. This is IP, man, IP. China on a mission to turn junk patents into treasure. That's right, junk patents into treasure. And this is the first in a series of reports on Chinese intellectual property as Beijing seeks to make IP protection a central part of its new development strategy. It was not for IP when it didn't have IP, but now that it's developing IP, now it will use IP as a weapon of war against everyone else, in the way that United States. I mean, IP is basically, for the West and for the United States especially, if you want to call it, it's been a colonizing force. It's putting people in kind of, a situation where, because they didn't come upon the technology first, if they want to develop as a nation, they have to, just to use the technology, they have to pay people money to be able to, it raises their cost of development significantly because they have to pay this IP. Well, now China would like to do the same to the rest of the world, right? I don't blame the nation state, although I blame all nation states wholly and together in using IP as a colonizing weapon of war against the free people. And all people deserve to be free in all of the nations. Shenzhen University, a relatively young educated institution at 38 years old, filed the third highest number of international patents in the world last year, beaten only by the University of California and the Massachusetts Institute of Technology. Its 252 patent filings were more than Johns Hopkins and Harvard combined. And so what they do is, in general, not just China, but you create a whole bunch of IP patents, and then you want them to be as vague as possible. So then when any small entity tries to do anything that might challenge you, you just sue them. And if they don't have the money for a good lawyer, and it really comes down to good lawyers, it's not about truth, it's about lawyers. It's about the quality of the lawyer, the sophistry of lawyering, basically, is what it's about. And you got to pay the lawyers are essentially sophists at this point. So the sophists come in, and if you don't know what sophists are, Greek sophists, they were the lawyers of their time, and they weren't actually after truth. They were actually after the rhetoric that would convince someone within the alleged framework of the language of the law that they were right, that dazzle you with their wonders and alls. No truth to anything that they do, other than the truth of sophistry, which is a technique basically to win an argument even when you don't have the facts on your side. And what they do then is they sue you, and you have a choice, which is lose in court, because you can't afford a lawyer, or, well, even if you can get to the court, because just paying a lawyer might bankrupt small companies, or settle with them. You settle with them one or two ways. Stop doing what you're doing so you can't challenge them. Your technology can't challenge them. Or they make sure that they get their pound of flesh so that you're basically de facto. I mean, it's a feudalism of the mind is what it is. You are renting the space of your own mind to others, because this technology, this information, it belongs to all of humanity, not just the folks that that originally made the discoveries. And there's ways that you can consider compensating people for being the innovators without locking their technology forever behind these firewalls, or for ridiculous long periods of time behind these firewalls that are essentially they're colonizing thought, they're colonizing innovation, so that they can prevent technology from freeing human beings at small scales, who might then be able to compete with large-scale oppressive systems, with the nationalists, whether they're nation-state nationalists or corporate nationalists. And that's that. And I don't really need to go over the other links. This is really all I really wanted to cover with this segment. And we'll get to our last story. Here's some hope. See this? There's hope. There's always hope. There's hope every day. Every day, in every way, there's things that you can do to combat the oppression around you, and most of it is right around you. If you have the ability to grow food, grow food. If you have the ability to equip your home with some form of renewable energy that gets you off of the grid, then do that. Do whatever you can. Try to pay down your debts if you have debts. I'm going through this process myself as much as possible. We got a lot of debt, so we're working on it. But debt is definitely ownership of your life by the same corporate nationalists that have made it clear they will use their power to enforce their very, very upside-down Christ morality on the rest of us. There should be a separation of corporation and state, because at this point it's very clear. Well, and by that I mean the state should not protect the corporation from the people when the corporation ticks the people off, as surely these corporations have. Let's get to this last story. Nuclear fusion power moving from myth to reality. This is a Freedom Headlines report. This is a wonderful, wonderful report. All kinds of good stuff here. We'll just go over the headlines here for this one. So the first story that we're going to cover here, this nuclear reactor just made fusion viable by 2030. Seriously. And this is from, let's see, TAE Technologies. The world's, let me try to get to the link here, Popular Mechanics. TAE Technologies, the world's largest private fusion company, has announced it will have a commercially viable nuclear fusion power plant by 2030. Well, we'll see about that. I think we probably will. That'd be great. But again, same issue with all these. Remember, whenever we do these Freedom Headlines, whatever technology they're developing, we don't need to rely on their technology. We need to steal, not literally steal, but steal their ideas if we don't have them ourselves, or develop our own versions. And we should have our own nuclear fusion power plants. mini nuclear fusion power plants. There you go. That are open source. Brain glue could someday help with severe brain injuries, from RealClearScience.com. Scientists say they're one step closer to showing that their experimental hydrogel technology, more plainly known as brain glue, can help people with traumatic brain injuries. In a recent study, they found that their brain glue helped prevent long-term damage and tissue loss in the injured brains of rats. Oldest modern, and this is, I already said Real Clear Science, oldest modern human genome reconstructed using DNA from 45,000-year-old skull. From SciTechDaily.com, we have Max Planck Institute for the Science of Human History. This skull from, well, let's see the skull. They have a picture of a skull. There it is. This skull from Zlatý Koun Cave near Prague belonged to the earliest known modern humans in Europe. Pretty cool. The fossil skull of a woman in Czechia has provided the oldest modern human genome yet reconstructed, representing a population formed before the ancestors of present-day Europeans and Asians split apart. Fascinating. I could talk all day about that one. There's a lot of stuff I could say about that. But I won't. Moving on. Glass molded like plastic could usher in new era of complex glass shapes. This is from Science Magazine. And there you get, you see the picture there? We got intricate gear-like shapes created with a new method. The production of glass, one of humanity's oldest materials, is getting a 21st century makeover. A new approach to glass making treats the material like plastic, allowing the scientists to injection mold vaccine vials, sinuous channels for carrying out lab chemistry, and other complex shapes. Okay. And then we have here, researchers develop blood test for depression and bipolar disorders from, where are you from? It's a Reddit link. I got a lot of good Reddit links, but then I got to go and figure out where they're from. So this is Medical Press Worldwide. There you go, Worldwide. So apparently now, I've always been a critic of psychology or whatever field this is, psychiatry, psychology, whatever. They don't have a blood test. Well, now they do, because before you could just say I'm depressed. Then you said, well, hold on, let's see if the blood says you're depressed. Let's see if your blood says you're depressed. Astonishing secret switch discovered that could revolutionize heart attack treatment. This is from Heart Attack Treatment, sir. This is from SciTechDaily.com. Victor Chang wrote this. Good on you, buddy. Cardiac Research Institute. Scientist at the Victor Chang. Oh, no, he didn't write it. This is Victor Chang Cardiac Research Institute. I see. All right. Scientists at the Victor Chang Cardiac Research Institute in Sydney have discovered a critical new gene that is hoped could get human hearts repair damaged. Could help human hearts repair damaged heart muscle after a heart attack. Researchers have identified a genetic switch in zebrafish that turns on cells. Allowing them to divide and multiply after a heart attack, resulting in the complex regeneration and healing of damaged heart muscles in these fish. Well, that's a good way to end it. So there you go. These are your Freedom Headlines reports. And remember, all technology, we want to convert it to open source so that we the people, and by we the people I mean all people of the world, not just Americans, so that we the people can have access to it and develop it ourselves outside of their controlling systems. Well, there you go. That's the end of the story. That is how it ends. That is how the story ends. And I want to make sure that you are going back right here to the NewsWatch page. Be sure you check on the NewsWatch page. And the best time to check it is about 9 or 10 in the morning, because I usually make the changes. They're all done by the early morning. Right now, I'm only doing one change a day, but eventually we'll be doing 2 changes. But we're working up to that. Folks. We need your support. We need you. If you give us support, then we can hire more people to do more stuff, and we can give you more thorough, more daily thorough coverage. And keep your eyes open. Keep on this channel, the Freedomist channel that you're seeing this, and pay attention, because the Big Freedomist show is coming. The Big Freedomist show will be a bi-weekly show with myself and my brother Bill, my identical twin, and we're going to go into a lot more detail with these stories and a lot more intelligence type reporting, kind of sit-rep reporting for you, if you will, to let you know pragmatically what's going on in the world, without all of the factionalisms that continuously make of human beings the angels and the demons that allow us to view our neighbors in less than honorable ways. And we are not for or against, per se, the folks at the rank and files of these factions. We're just hoping to show them the door away from these factions to something more, I'll say more humane. How about that? I'll say something more humane that pragmatically considers the wants and needs of all, and doesn't wrap them in these moral supremacist arguments that allow us to reduce our neighbors to something subhuman that we no longer have to deal with in any way, shape, or form. And with that, I'm going to end this episode. I thank you very much for watching this episode of the Daily Freedomist Show. I'm your host, Paul Gordon Collier. Be sure you go to Freedomist.com, become a Freedomist friend for $10 a month. Support the Freedomist in its effort to bring to you news intelligence in measured ways, not favored by the algorithm of hate and fear that currently dominates our language, or landscape, and our language for that matter. I don't know why I clicked on that, but there you go. It's all over. Good night, everybody.